welcome into the garage area where we're here to recap the All-Star race that we saw Joey Logano win. I was very happy to see that, obviously. Corey Heim ends up winning the truck race. Both take place at North Wilkesboro after a repave. Kind of some things going into the weekend. The idea of having two separate tire compounds for the Cup Series cars, a softer tire and a primary tire or a harder tire, or however you want to look at that. It didn't really seem to make the difference that we were hoping that it would.
No.
It seemed like being able to put on the soft compound, the red tire, as they were saying, seemed like it worked just fine and gave them all the grip that they needed to run all 200 laps, 100 laps a set, basically. And the prime tires didn't really seem to be even that much difference. Primary tires didn't seem to be that much different either, because even the guys that took those tires, they didn't really fall away too bad either. After that first caution, it doesn't seem like they were having a whole lot of issues keeping up with the guys on the prime tires at the front, or the red tires at the front.
They definitely couldn't pass them past the.
Well, I don't think anybody could pass anybody.
Well, true, but I think the times just didn't equal out soon enough for them to make a difference. You know? It was finally at the end of the 100 laps where the what they call them, the primes or the regular tires.
Yeah.
Okay. It wasn't until after like the end of the stage is when they finally started equaling out.
Yeah, that's the way it seemed, for sure. It didn't seem like there was enough advantage there to continue to pursue this, or to think that the red sidewall tire was anything spectacular at all.
Yeah.
It seemed like this was basically a failed experiment, I would say. I mean, they got to go much softer, I think, if we're going to have this be any sort of a difference maker at all, a factor in any way.
I don't know if it was the softness of the tire, or like the rubber underneath didn't like go away enough. It's like the compound underneath. It was like they had multi-compound. Maybe the fastest stuff did wear out, but what's underneath it didn't wear out enough either.
Yeah, that could very well be. I don't know. Not a tire expert, but I can tell you this. North Wilkesboro, the racetrack itself, even though, like we said, people couldn't pass, it looked racy.
Yeah.
I would love to see I'd like to see the Gen 4 cars here.
Yeah.
And see what they could do at a track like this.
Xfinity cars, that would put
Xfinity cars would be good. Yeah, that's a good point. I'd like to see something like that, but I don't know. Here's my recap of the race. Joey Logano led 199 of 200 laps. We had one caution that we cared about. We had two others that were really not relevant.
Yeah.
And we need more horsepower and less downforce.
Yeah.
And that's my All-Star Weekend recap. Joey Logano dominated the race, wins the $1 million. First win for him in over a year. My favorite driver, unfortunately, did not pick him. I picked Noah Gragson. You ended up picking who?
Denny Hamlin.
Denny Hamlin. He finished second, so obviously, congratulations to you on winning our picks this week. Kyle Larson, I thought that was an interesting storyline with him going back and forth to Indy, and ended up finishing fourth in this race, and looked like when he put on tires at the end that he was going to be somebody that could drive up there and be a factor for the win, but didn't end up taking place.
Yeah, I thought for sure once he got up to third there, it was all his. But
yeah, when I watched it, I thought, boy, he's going to get Hamlin too.
Yeah. And
I wasn't sure he was going to get all the way to Joey, but I was pretty sure he was going to get Hamlin, and that just never materialized. I don't know. You would certainly have liked to have seen more passing in this race.
Oh, definitely.
Big time.
Yeah.
It seemed like guys couldn't finish a corner no matter what.
Yeah.
You just couldn't quite get off of it and stay alongside somebody or make a pass completely or anything along that line. Before we get back to the main source of news in the Cup Series race, the Truck Series race. Nothing super spectacular there that I'm aware of. I didn't actually get to see the race itself. I know that Corey Heim won. He led 66 laps. That appears to have been the most. Christian Eckes led 62, also quite a few laps. He finished 6th. Tyler Ankrum led 26. Ty Majeski led 50. Ankrum finished 8th. Majeski finished 11th. The other significant lap leader looks like Jake Garcia. He finished 21st. I'm assuming that was probably on some pit strategy, but I don't know that for a fact. Looks like we had 7 cautions in this one. One for 2, I guess, for the stages. But yeah, majority of them being for incident. The point standings shake out like this. Christian Eckes is the points leader. Corey Heim is 4 points back. Ty Majeski, Nick Sanchez, and Taylor Gray round out the top 5. A couple other significant names. Tyler Ankrum in 6th. Roger Carruth 7th. Those are guys that I'd be paying attention to this year in the Truck Series in general. I thought that it was a good finish for Lane Riggs, finishing 3rd. Enfinger finished 2nd. Brendan Queen ended up 4th. And this was his debut in trucks,
I
right?
believe so, yes.
Big time name in the short track world, in the Cars Tour and all that. Good finish for him in the 4th position there.
Did you see NASCAR made him change his nameplate on his truck?
Yeah.
From Butterbean?
Yeah. I don't know. It seems very unnecessary to be that strict with it.
Yeah.
I feel like, because back in the day, Tony Stewart used to have smoke above the door.
Yeah.
Kyle used to have rowdy above the door. Why can't you just put whatever you want for the back glass or whatever it is? Name, I don't know. I don't know why that's so significant. If you're a fan of that driver, you'd know who he was regardless.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not like you can read it at speed anyway, so I don't understand that one. I don't know why that's such a significant issue. Anything else from the truck race you wanted to cover?
I just watched the first stage. I mean, the track repave and the racing actually looked racy. So, I mean, a lot of repaved tracks and stuff. A lot of times a lot of grip and they run single file and stuff. So, whatever they did to the track with this repave seemed to work out pretty well as far as the track goes.
Yeah. So. I would be. I didn't have an issue with this particular repave, even though there wasn't a lot of passing. It certainly seemed like you could fault the car and not the track for it.
Yeah.
There just wasn't anything that made me think that North Wilkesboro did a bad job. In fact, I think probably the best thing that they did in this whole situation was not adding any sort of access from the infield to the outside of the racetrack. And that's what kept Ricky Stenhouse in the infield for 200 laps, as Kyle Busch absolutely shipped him and wrecked him on lap 2 of the race. Was setting it up a little bit. In the first set of corners, Ricky made it 3 wide through the middle.
Yeah.
And it was Hamlin on the bottom, right?
Yep.
And he ended up shooting the middle, and Kyle was on the outside, Kyle Busch. He ends up getting up high, way too high, and bounces off the wall. Maybe makes contact with Stenhouse after he hits the wall.
Yeah, just briefly, Stenhouse rear quarter.
Just a touch, and then goes into the next corner and tries to hit him. Doesn't make it happen. Goes into the next set of corners. Hits him once in the left rear, hits him twice in the left rear, and when Stenhouse went to turn it back to the right, he goes right front corner into the wall, destroys his race car, his night's done. Disappointing for him because it sounded like he actually had something he could at least run near the front with, in his opinion.
Yeah.
We have no idea from not being able to see what his performance was going to be.
But I know I think his crew chief talked about they had a new setup they were trying, to test out in this race and stuff, and they got 1 lap of testing, so... That was about it.
Yeah. Speaking of testing, did you think, before we continue on with this conversation, did you think that Logano had an unfair advantage with the tire test he did?
Well, he said he got 800 laps. That seems pretty excessive.
That's a lot.
So, I mean,
that's 4 races, 4 All-Star races.
So, that seemed like a shock to me. It was tire testing, so I don't know if they tried different tires or how many sets of tires they ran through, what differences they had, or what they learned. But that seemed a little unfair. But
it was a tire test for this compound, correct? Like to test the difference between these two. This concept.
I don't know if it was just these 2 compounds or they had other ones.
I'm sure they had others also, but it was in order to select the 2 for.
Yeah.
That was my understanding. It was to select the 2 different compounds for this particular race, this All-Star event. That the experiment that they were trying here. I would say that's probably somewhat of an unfair advantage.
Yeah.
But also, listening to Door Bumper Clear this week, I thought Freddie Kraft brought up a good point that pretty much whoever started on the pole was going to have an advantage.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to determining. It's more than just regular qualifying for the All-Star race.
Yeah.
You have a pit stop. You have to get on and off pit road. There's a lot of things factored into who actually starts on the pole and starts up front in the All-Star race. So that test obviously had nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
But certainly gave them a good enough car that when they were out front, they were going to stay out front. I don't know if Logano could have come through the field if he started, 18th or something like that.
Yeah.
But it sure looked like as long as he stayed up front, you weren't going to touch him. So, yeah, I wish that there was something different that we could do in order to test tires, to where Cup Series drivers weren't involved in that, to maintain a fair playing field the whole way across. Yeah. We do a bunch of stuff to try to make sure that nobody has a competitive advantage, and then we go to these tests. Obviously, not the full field goes to the test, but there's a fair amount of people that go there.
Usually one driver for a select amount of teams or something like that.
From what I understood, Byron and Ty Gibbs were also there, and did not seem like that had any advantage for them. Byron ended up hitting the wall, breaking a toe link. They repaired it. He ended up several laps down. And Ty Gibbs, he did get spun out, but he did finish 13th also. So, you could make an argument on either side. I'm fine if there was a way to take away any advantage from people testing, but at the same point, I don't necessarily feel that this test played a direct result in Logano winning this race. Running well, sure. I mean, I'll give you that.
I really believe at points Hamlin really had a better car than Logano. He just couldn't get around him too. So.
And that's disappointing either. Like, obviously, I don't want Hamlin to get around Joe to win the race, but it's disappointing when you see a faster car not able to pass for the lead or any position.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating at any racetrack, unless it's just like an old school Bristol or a Martinsville situation where that car is going to hold you up because there is only one way around that racetrack, and it's up to you to move them. Like, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But if you just can't finish a pass because some guy can drop down to the next gear, or they're just the aerodynamics play a factor, whatever the case is, I don't like that. So I really wish that, same thing we've been saying for forever, that we just had better race cars. Back to the whole Kyle Busch, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. thing. We got way off topic here. So after Ricky's turned headfirst into the wall, he has a great line, in my opinion, to when he's interviewed on TV. He said that he's going to see Kyle after the race, and maybe Richard can hold his watch. That's obviously referencing Richard asking Austin Dillon, I believe it was, to hold his watch while he went over and beat Kyle Busch up at a race weekend as a result of a truck race altercation between one of the grandsons and Kyle, as Kyle was running a lot of truck races at that time. So Stenhouse makes that comment, and just a great video from Jordan Bianchi. You can just see the side of Kyle's hat. You could tell it's Kyle Busch. You can see the side of his face. You just see Stenhouse over there resting on the rail of the hauler. And he goes, Kyle goes walking over there. They have a conversation. Kyle seems to think that, whatever. I don't really care. That was certainly his demeanor. I don't think that I did anything wrong. I think you definitely put me in the wall. And Ricky's saying, I never touched you. And I never did anything to put you in the wall. What are you talking about? And
I remember. I think Kyle said, "I don't believe you."
Yeah, that's basically it. He was saying that he didn't believe it. Ricky was telling him, "Well, go watch the replay," and didn't sound like Kyle had any interest in that. Didn't have any respect for what Ricky was saying at all, basically. And then finally, Ricky took just a big lunge back and boom, hits Kyle in the face, and then kind of chaos ensues from there. His dad gets involved. Other crew guys get involved. Ricky's dad actually takes some shots there and finds himself to be a little banged up after that one. Kyle screaming at Ricky afterwards that, basically, I'm paraphrasing, that he doesn't care and he is running just as bad as Ricky is now. And, when that camera panned away, who I saw standing there was Andy Petrie. And I thought that was interesting that, the director of competition at RCR, some high-ranking official in RCR, and you're screaming that literally. He was standing between the two of them, so he had to shout that over Petrie as he's telling Stenhouse.
I missed that part of it.
So I thought that was interesting. Stenhouse, I should point out too, after he got wrecked, he parked his car in Kyle's box. Went over and got up on the pit box and talked to his crew chief and told him that he better be ready for him when he got done racing. And it sounds like Kyle got that word pretty much as soon as the checkered flag flew that he was going to have a visitor.
I believe they told him over the radio. So
because they said that he didn't spend much time at all at the race car. He got out, took his helmet off, put his hat on, went over to his hauler. And I don't really know what he was expecting, if he knew that he was going to get swung on or what, but can I venture into the conspiracy theory side of this a little bit?
Sure.
I think that this could have been staged. I don't think that he was wrecked on purpose.
Yeah.
But I do think that there was maybe some fanning of the flames around the All-Star race to, if you have an issue with the driver, make it confrontational. The only reason, I'm not saying that there's any hard evidence of this, but to me, the swing looked weak. There didn't seem to be like it was really provoked. Like they were having a relatively calm conversation, and Ricky swung on him, and there was really no, I don't know, not a whole lot of people got beat up in this whole thing. I mean, it was crew guys throwing each other around. It wasn't like the brawls of old, I guess. I don't know. It seemed kind of clunky the way it went off, like it was bad acting in a play.
I don't know. I just feel like anymore there's like people there ready to pull people apart when it comes to that. So that was pretty much what happened immediately.
Yeah.
I was curious to how Ricky and Kyle got separated, because Ricky took the swing and then with his right arm and then with his left arm, almost like he was going to get him in a chokehold.
Yeah.
And then somehow he got out of that. That was every view, everybody's getting out of the way or getting shoved over as the camera, so you missed a lot of it. But
got a good look at Bob Pockris. Yeah, there was just a whole lot happening there, and I'm not like of a hard and fast belief that it was staged, but it just feels like it could have been.
Yeah. I didn't think so at the time, so
I don't know. I've watched it enough times, and it just seems a little weird to me. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I just feel like if you're of the mindset to punch somebody, when they walk over, and you're going to confront them, like, I just feel like it's going to be a higher level of yelling before fists are thrown.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like it was a pretty calm conversation. They kind of elevated into a loud conversation like this, and then that was kind of just seemed like the punch was forced. Like Denny even talked about it to where it was like Ricky thought that his window of opportunity to punch him for a justified reason was closing. And I don't know. I if you just had it predetermined that you were going to punch him,
you should have just like done it.
You should have just yelled something real quick and you popped him. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's my theory on it. Not saying that that's true or that. I just feel like NASCAR needs something to kind of hype up the All-Star race, and especially as boring as that race was outside of that. I mean, that's the only thing people are talking about.
Yeah.
And now it's on ESPN. Barstool's talking about it. Pardon My Take, which is the #1 sports podcast in the world, they mentioned it.
Yeah.
And they don't ever talk about NASCAR. I don't know. It just something seemed a little bit odd about that to me. Do you happen to have our picks pulled up for our season-long thing that we're doing with picking each race?
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the Denny Hamlin Bracket Challenge that NASCAR is now adopting. I like to see the fact that they take good ideas from when they do show up, and I think that this is one of Denny's good ideas. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Before the race at Gateway, I would encourage everybody to fill out a bracket and see how you stack up. What do our picks look like right now? How many correct picks have we had?
Between the two of us, 5.
Out of how many races? What do we got? Looks like 14.
Yeah.
So 5 correct picks, winning picks out of 14 races, I think is a pretty good average.
Yeah.
Especially like you said, between the two of us. What's the points right now? Who's leading who?
You got me by 1 point, 12 to 11.
So 12 to 11. Blaney over Hamlin. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how that all goes too. We'll be sure to tweet out our picks for the Coke 600, who we think is going to perform well there. And I'm telling you what, I'm leaning towards the Ford. They've started to bring it on a little bit lately. Keselowski's been fast. Buescher's been fast. Blaney's been fairly consistent. Gregson's been pretty consistent. Joey's now running well. I'd be curious to know. Logano's not had a good year outside of Daytona, Atlanta. Do you think that this is actually some sort of momentum for him? Or do you think that, hey, it's an all-star race, it's a one-off, don't even worry about counting that towards his performance?
This may have jump-started some momentum. I mean, that'd be the only thing.
Do you expect him to run top 5 at Charlotte?
Not there yet. No.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not either. I'm not either. I agree with you. I would like to see him run better. Now, if I asked you, do you think Brad Keselowski is going to run top 5?
I think he could.
Yeah, you think that he could. So, I need to see more out of Joey for me to get excited as a fan that he's going to be a contender week in and week out. I do like to see Ford on the upswing. Certainly think that RFK cars are at the top of the Ford game right now. And then obviously Hendrick and Gibbs, those are the other two powerhouses. Denny Hamlin just seems to run in the top 5 every week. So does Chris Buescher, and Kyle Larson is probably one of the greatest drivers in the world. You and I went to...
That's a pretty controversial take for the F1 fans.
I don't know why. I could race an F1 car.
Yeah.
You and I went to Sharon Speedway over the weekend, and I saw a lot of Ryan Blaney hats and shirts, obviously, because of the Blaney connection to that racetrack. But I would say that I saw more Kyle Larson shirts, just for his presence in that dirt racing world. I pointed out to you when we were standing in the ticket line that there was a guy had a T-shirt of his dirt late model, his wing sprint, and the Cup car, and you said that all he's missing is the Indy car now. Kyle Larson racing in the Indy 500, qualified in the Fast 6. It doesn't look like he's going to be a slow car. He's going to be somebody that's competing for the win, I bet.
Yeah.
I mean, that car looks like it's good.
I don't know IndyCar enough to know between qualifying trim and race trims and how that stuff plays out. But
I don't think it's a whole lot of difference.
Yeah. Then Penske cars, I guess, were pretty tough.
That's where I'm going to be pulling for. The Penske cars, obviously, being a Penske Racing fan, but or a Team Penske fan. It's not Penske Racing anymore. And obviously, you'll be pulling for Kyle Larson. That being said, if Kyle Larson wins the race, it's going to be a pretty cool story.
Oh, yeah.
And I would not be disappointed if he comes to Charlotte and wins the Cup race also.
Because
if you won both things in the same day, that'd be the coolest thing I've ever witnessed in racing, no matter who it is. So that's what I'm actually hoping for. So my rooting interests are going to be based on the Indy 500. If Kyle Larson finishes 4th, then I hope a Team Penske car wins both races. Other than that, anything that you want to talk about from this weekend?
Just recently, I guess on Twitter, someone posted that if Ricky Stenhouse touches the 8 car this weekend or something, Richard's going to personally take care of it. So there might be a Ricky Richard meeting at some point. So
I'll be honest with you, I would not be even slightly concerned about that if I was Ricky Stenhouse Jr. You know how last year after Darlington, the spring race, that they said that Rick Hendrick called Ross Chastain, and that kind of cooled him off the rest of the year. If I'm Ross Chastain, I could not care less that Rick Hendrick called me on the phone.
I wouldn't.
And I don't know why that had such a big impact on him. And I can tell you this, I do not think it's going to impact Ricky Stenhouse Jr.
No.
If Richard Childress wanted to call him, if he wanted to talk to him in person, if he wanted to roll up his sleeves and swing on him, I don't think it would matter to Ricky.
Have to go get his watch back.
Yeah, he would. Give it to Kyle. I don't know. I think this is going to be a much ado about nothing. I don't think that this is going to be a rivalry moving forward. I don't think it's going to be anything. I think that's just two frustrated drivers. Ricky doesn't normally run well and thought he had something that could compete at the All-Star race. Kyle never runs well anymore and felt like he got used up immediately on the first lap of the race. So I understand the frustration on both sides there. Would like to see more stuff like that. Want to see more guys swing on each other. Yeah. Anything else from this weekend you want to talk about? All right, that's going to do it for us here in the garage area. Short episode this week, but hey, there wasn't a whole lot to talk about. There was a dominated race by the 22 car, which is what you love to see if you're a fan over here. And obviously not true. I wish he actually won a nail-biter at the line. And it was a good race the whole night. But either way, us Logano fans, we can get out of the bathtub and enjoy a 22 car win. So that's going to do it for us from here, and we'll be back next week to recap the Code 600.